Take it. Take it. This part isn't about the virus at all. It's about following orders. About doing what you're told.
Going right out to get vaccinated. Going right out to get vaccinated.
This part isn't about the virus at all. It's about following orders. About doing what you're told.
I wanted to do this video partly because of this news thing that came up with the 100 monkeys crash, and also about the Mandoodle effect. Because this movie 12 Monkeys is about the Mandoodle effect. And to me, it seems like the movie's always changing. There's things in the movie, but this 100 monkeys crash in Pennsylvania, you know, it makes me think of 100th monkey syndrome or 100th monkey phenomenon, whatever it's called, like a tipping point. It's also just funny and ridiculous. But also not just because of what's going on right now. Also, I like Terry Gilliam movies. And yeah, I thought it would be just a good opportunity to... Why are they moving the monkeys with a pickup truck? It seems weird. A pickup truck hauling a trailer with the macaques. Stuck her finger in. That's smart. Anyway, yeah, hopefully I can get these 12 Monkeys clips through. I'm going to use them to talk about my views on the Mandoodle effect. And those first clips I showed just in the beginning, yeah, it's interesting. He says this is never about a virus, it's about following orders, about doing what you're told. And they're trying to force a gun into his hand. His handlers, like trying to force him to some kind of violence. And there's a couple scenes in the movies with tigers. He's wearing this tiger shirt. And I'm pretty sure this year is the Chinese year of the tiger. And there's another scene with the tiger also. It also takes place in Philadelphia and Baltimore. And there's another scene with a tiger right in front of the art museum with walking right by this statue at the entrance to the art museum of Prometheus strangling the vulture, which goes into this whole thing that I've been talking about and researching and getting into again, and Ross Ben talks about with Ben Franklin, the Rodin Museum, the gates of hell, the thinker, Ben Franklin opening the gates of hell, freeing these fallen angels, and in exchange for, you know, Prometheus brings man fire, which is like electricity. It's like a metaphor for technology. The fire is, and it's like this repeating cycle in civilization, it seems. Or maybe this is the first time, and everything else we see is just some strange mirror, hall of mirror reflection. But you know, Ben Franklin, supposedly his story is that he discovers electricity. And there's this statue in front of the art museum, Ben Franklin Parkway, of Prometheus strangling the vulture. Like, he breaks his chains, he's free. These gods loosed. In exchange, they give technology, which is electricity. Ben Franklin supposedly discovering electricity. They have the tiger coming down the art museum steps here. And then here, the tiger with the Prometheus statue. And if you look here, you can see on this column here, if I zoom in, it's a Nas poster, but it looks like it says Miss Nas. Like there's graffiti over it, MS. Like Miss Nas, and it reminds me of that rapper now, that like gay transgender rapper who's also named Nas. or Lil Nas or whatever. Hold on. You see this poster here? It looks like it says Miss Nas, like female Nas. Now we have this Lil Nas, gay transgender rapper. Miss, it's like the female Nas. It's even kind of like the red hair, how he's got the red hair I saw in pictures. That's the tiger on the art museum steps, coming down the steps onto the Ben Franklin Parkway. And then right after, it's the tiger coming between the two pillars of the art museum. The tiger walks between the two pillars of the art museum in front of the statue of Prometheus strangling the vulture on the Ben Franklin Parkway here in Philadelphia. Again, the tiger thing, like he's wearing the shirt with all the tigers on it. I believe this is the year of the tiger this year, I'm pretty sure. And then here in this scene you have the elephant. The elephant is a symbol for never forget, like the 7-Eleven slogan. I'll show you, it's clear later in the movie. They like make that obvious that that's what it means. But they have the elephant, never forget, walking in front of the two sets of twin towers. The two Liberty Towers here are like twin towers, and then the two like pagoda towers. I'm not sure what those are called. I forget what they're called. But you have to never forget the twin towers thing. So it's like linking maybe this year, the year of the tiger, back to this year, 2001 of 7-Eleven. You can see in this clip when they're inside their clubhouse, like hideout of the 12 Monkeys, you see this poster. It says never forget with the elephant on it. Right there. And it says FAA all over the place. That's what their thing is called. Their animal organization is called FAA, but obviously FAA is Federal Aviation Administration. So it's linking it, the elephant in front of the sets of twin towers with the never forget, with the FAA, with the planes, and you can even see the neon here in the window. It looks like an 11 or like a 911. And it also is like with the tiger's on his shirt, the tiger in front of the art museum, and the thing of Prometheus. It's also, the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengal is a tiger, just like that tiger just played in the Super Bowl this year. The year of the tiger. And Cincinnati, that's another thing having to do with the Ben Franklin Parkway and the art museum, because that was one of the early American, American secret societies, was the Society of the Cincinnati, which was these original like bloodline families in America and in France. There's a thing in the movie about France. It's crazy. It goes so deep. But Cincinnati basically means Rome. It's something about the 7 hills in Rome. That's what the word Cincinnati actually means. So you have the Cincinnati Bengals, the tiger, in the year of the tiger, the elephant, never forgetting FAA, Federal Aviation Administration.
You're a psychiatrist? Did you just say you're a psychiatrist? Well, see, here's my theory on that. When I was institutionalized, my brain was studied exhaustively in the guise of mental health. I was interrogated, I was x-rayed, I was examined thoroughly. Then they took everything about me and put it into a computer where they created this model of my mind. Yes, using that model, they managed to generate every thought I could possibly have in the next, say, 10 years, which they then filtered through a probability matrix of some kind to determine everything I was going to do in that period. So you see, She knew I was going to leave the army of the 12 monkeys into the pages of history before it ever even occurred to me. She knows everything I'm ever going to do before I know it myself. How's that?
So also, obviously, in this scene is the idea of studying your mind, creating a virtual model of your mind, which they run through a probability matrix to determine everything you're going to do for the next 10 years before you even know that you're going to do it. Then he's throwing the globe on the ground and breaking it. There's multiple things in the movie also about destroying the globe. Like on the scientist's suitcase, there's a globe with a nail going through it. Final nail through the globe. And it says Atlas. Multiple things about bats everywhere. And even if you look at this guy on the left, his shirt, it's like these memes that they have all the time now. It says 17 and this kind of meme face. I forget what they call this guy. This gray guy, but it's like looks like a popular meme that they have now. But yeah, he throws the globe down, and you can see FAA everywhere. And there's better views of the suitcase in different parts, but you can see one of the most prominent stickers in the bottom left-hand corner is the nail through the globe. Also, like the final nail through the globe, and it says Atlas. There's another thing on here that says genuine bat guano or something up to the top right. This one looks like SpongeBob SquarePants with a Batman mask on. I'm not sure what that one is actually. And you can see the reflection also of the globe. And it looks like a needle too, going through the whole globe. Like a syringe going through the globe. And if you look at the globe in this scene, it just looks crazy. The land masses are like not recognizable as our land masses on here. Very strange globe that he's smashing here.
Now, I don't have to tell you all that the dangers of science are a time-worn threat. From Prometheus stealing fire from the gods,
I know.
the Cold War era of the Dr. Strangelove terror, but never from Prometheus stealing fire from the gods, from Prometheus stealing the Cold War era of the Dr. Strangelove terror, but the power we have at hand.
So in that clip, he mentions again, the virologist mentions Prometheus stealing fire from the gods. So it's the Prometheus thing again. Like they show the statue in front of the art museum. But the tiger, that's this year. And then he also says the Cold War era of the Dr. Strangelove terror. And when he says the Dr. Strangelove, obviously the nuclear thing, which you could go into its whole own thing about disrupting the space-time continuum, Back to the Future, that whole thing. But I also hear Doctor Strange, which is the comic book, and now the movies, which deals with all this different timelines, quantum mysticism type shit, and like Mandoodle effect type stuff, altering reality. That's the whole Doctor Strange thing. And also that movie came out this year also, which is the Spider-Man No Way Home movie with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and all these different timelines, which I didn't see the movie, but I just saw the posters for it, and I know it came out this year also. He also has like a monocle, boom, and then he flips into two like regular sort of reading glasses, looking glass. But it also reminds me of, Monopoly Man. He's kind of like the Monopoly Man, Mr. Peanut with the monocle, Mandoodle effects. And basically this whole movie is about Mandoodle effects anyway. Because when it opens in the very beginning, it's Brad Pitt, Jeffrey, as the scientist, which later in the movie it's not him. Later it's the different actor with red hair who's the dad from Alien, who's the alien dad from the movie Contact with Jodie Foster. But when they show it in the beginning in his dream, it's actually Brad Pitt. And there's many other like Mandoodle effects within the movie. And I don't know if you can see this, but in this scene in the airport, both in the beginning when it's Brad Pitt and later when it's the dad from Contact, this final scene in the airport, you can see the gate right behind him both times is A919, so that's a 19, obviously 19 in the background. That comes up multiple times also. The bat thing, the nail through the globe, the Mandoodle effect, and this 19. And it's linked with 7-Eleven multiple times also, with the planes, the airport, the Never Forget, the FAA. This movie's just so densely coded, it's crazy. I got artwork from my wife, some stuff my wife was messing around with in the background. I thought was cool. These like paper cutout things. I thought they were dope. In this scene, it says something like, anyone, if germs are detected, you will be denied re-entry, and he's testing himself for this virus. So it's this idea of testing yourself over and over again. And you can see the blood coming through this tube. It's literally a closed loop, a feedback loop. So it's like this idea of, number one, the Mandoodle effect being this time loop and being in a closed loop, but also this just feedback loop and this idea of testing, having to test yourself over and over again, and this paranoia of the virus. And then if you look in this scene here, it shows a hamster running in a wheel, like silhouetted in a cage while he's doing this test. So it's the same thing again, closed loop, the feedback loop, the closed loop, the hamster wheel, just same thing over and over again, never going anywhere. This weird little detail, I'll try and zoom in and play it. Lost Hopefully you could see that, the hamster running in the wheel. Which is weird also, because I watched this documentary about the making of this movie and about Terry Gilliam. And the documentary about the making of the movie is called The Hamster Factor. And they specifically show that scene, and the whole idea of the documentary is, yeah, Terry Gilliam puts all these crazy dense things in every scene, and you think the movie's about one thing, but it's really about this hidden thing that he has going on in the scene. And the documentary is talking about how no one understands what he's doing, and he's fighting with the studio because he spends very little time on these big scenes, like the airport scenes and where the actors are actually interacting, but he'll spend days and days on these little 5-second sequences, and it specifically is talking about that hamster running in that wheel right there. Another strange thing about this documentary about the making of the movie is, of course, during the making of the whole movie, Terry Gilliam, the director, has this crazy black eye. He has a crazy black eye and a bandage next to his eye. with like with like a gash or something, a cut like next to his eye, a big cut, and a really bad black eye. And they say like he was thrown from a horse. He had a horseback riding accident or something, like right when the movie was starting. It's just, kind of typical and very bizarre. In this scene where he's searching for the 12 monkeys, he's ripping down these posters. It's spray painted underneath, and they say cellular muse, which makes me think of cellular, like cellular phone. Muse, inspiration as in cause. Like the cellular phone cause of this whole thing. There's another poster that says Chem Lab that you'll see. But it's really strong on the phones. And then also she says, I see a mark. Like, she doesn't say, I see spray paint, I see just paint. She says, I see a mark. It's clearly a reference to the MOB, mark. Like the mark of the beast, clearly. Because it's even like red paint, which is, that's what the, Passover mark is. Like how in scripture there's always like the good version and the bad version, this dichotomy, like Christ, Antichrist, like, and God will save the people who are marked for him, and the beast will cause everyone to take a mark. And it's like this red paint is clearly like the Passover mark thing. She says, it just looks like a mark to me. It says cellular muse, Chem Lab, and then this homeless dude says, they have a tracking device on you. There's no hiding from them. They always know where you're going to be and everything you say. And he's clearly talking about cell phones, But this movie was made before, at least before cell phones were as common as they are now, for sure.
You see?
I see some red paint. Some mark.
Oh, Mark, you think that... You see?
I see some red paint. Some mark.
Mark, you think that...
Oh, this is
Hey!
ridiculous.
Hey! Do anything crazy. I'll hurt somebody.
I am not going to do anything.
From the bar. I said you can't hide from them. No, sir, old Bob. Don't even try. They hear everything. They got that tracking device on you. They can find you anywhere, anytime.
Naomi. You see, here it is again. You see? Here, follow this paint trail.
So it says cellular muse, as in cause, cellular cause. He says they got that, the homeless guy, who always calls him Bob, which is a whole nother thing. Bob, 808, bass frequencies, 808, bicycle, playing cards, ace of spades. Maybe I'll do a whole nother video on that. Cellular muse, Chem Lab, the mark, and then you have this Nas poster again in the background right here. Lil Nas X. Yeah, the homeless guy always calls him Bob, and he's throughout the movie is also like a voice in his head, which goes into a lot of stuff, but it's basically, I think that's a code for like low frequency and like demonic possession. It's also 808, like the bicycle, playing cards. It goes Back to the Future, the 88, the sun and the moon, the shape they make in the sky. I forget what it's called, but yeah, I'll do that in a different video.
I don't think the human mind is meant to exist in two different, whatever you called it, dimensions. It's just too stressful. You said that yourself. It's very confusing. You don't know what's real and what's not.
But you know what's real now.
Yes, sir, I do.
So, in conjunction with the cellular muse, cellular cause thing and the tracking device thing, they always know where you are. They know what you're going to do 10 years ahead of time. Whenever he goes back to the future, he only communicates with the control system with these scientists through pretty much never like face to face, but always through these screens, through this like panopticon globe of screens. And obviously they have all the one eye stuff going on here. And he says, I don't think the human mind is meant to exist in two dimensions at once. It's too stressful. There's no way to know what's real. And you could look at it as the two dimensions being like a real time travel thing, the future and the past, or what have you. Or you could look at it as like the organic, natural world, your normal life, and also the digital, virtual dimension, the panopticon globe of screens that he's interacting with these people through.
Yet among the myriad microwaves, the infrared messages, the gigabytes of ones and zeros, we find words, bite-sized now, tinier even than science, lurking in some vague electricity. But if we but listen, we hear the solitary voice of that poet telling us, yesterday, this day's madness did prepare. Tomorrow's silence, triumph or despair. Drink, for you know not whence you came, nor why.
That's like an interesting little thing about coded messages. And then these myriad of microwaves, it's again with the cellular muse, the screens, and these myriad microwaves, gigabytes of data, ones and zeros, we find words, I forget what she says, interspersed, tiny, even tinier than science. We hear that singular voice of the poet. It's something about the messages you can pull out of these things if you pay attention real closely. And then we have the woman being distracted by the beeper, the early like cell phone thing. You know, while the woman's giving her this message, she's being distracted by this beeper and tripping and unaware of her surroundings.
Yet among the myriad microwaves, the infrared messages, the gigabytes of ones and zeros, we find words, bite-sized now, tinier even than science, lurking in some vague electricity. But if we but listen, we hear the solitary voice of that poet telling us, yes.
We can see this woman, the doctor, she gives this presentation to basically scare everyone about this end of the world virus, this pandemic. And the result is this guy comes up to her immediately afterward and he says, I'm going straight out to get the procedure. So there's this idea of like scaring everyone with this big thing and their immediate reaction.
Going right out to get vaccinated. Going right out to get vaccinated. Going right out to get vaccinated.
The very last scene of the movie's interesting too. It's this woman who Terry Gilliam says is supposed to be came back from the future, but I always thought this was her in the past. And she shakes hands with the virologist and says, I'm an insurance. Some weird thing about the insurance, at least what I read into it. My code reading, my tea leaf reading is something about the insurance companies, being like in cahoots with the virologist or, the people responsible for whatever is happening, the crisis.
It's obscene. All the violence, all the lunacy. Shootings even at airports now. You might say that we're the next endangered species. Human beings.
I think you're right, man. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Jones is my name.
he says, I think you're right, ma'am. You hit the nail right on the head, which is like this on his suitcase, the globe with the nail through it. It's like the syringe, the needle through the globe. You hit the nail right on the head, ma'am. Insurance, I'm in insurance, shaking hands. The guy, and she says, shootings even at airports now. Reminds me of, obviously, other events, Brussels airport thing and whatever else.
This part isn't about the virus at all, is it? It's about following orders. About doing what you're told.
Again, to seeing him getting shot at the end in the airport. He's got the tiger shirt on. The tiger at the Art Museum, Prometheus, Cincinnati Bengals, the year of the tiger. She's reaching out right for this A9 thing, mirrored backwards. But the 19, the 19, A9, 19. Even looks like a C. The phone below it, C19. Like underneath the bathroom and phone sign. I'm almost done. It's like one of the last scenes I'm going to show. But when they're in the mental institution, Jeffrey, representing insanity, presents him with the key. And he says, it's time to escape, you know? But it has something to do with like a financial upheaval, financial crash. There's a thing on the TV that says the bearish decade ahead. And Jeffrey is saying, buy, sell, buy, sell, stock market, all this crazy shit. And the people all start yelling. And that's when he's supposed to escape. He gives him the key right there. He says, I told you everything you needed to know. And he almost escapes, but then gets caught. And it seems like he's not going to get out. They strap him down, but then he just disappears almost magically. He like teleports out of there. And you'll see there's the newspaper has the bat thing again. There's a Mandoodle effect with the guard changing faces. And also this guy stops him, a patient at the door, and has like an N95 mask on. Like the masks that everyone wears now.
Monkey.
If you see a bearish future in the decade ahead, consider the changes sweeping the world and the opportunities they offer.
And the opportunities they offer. Ooh, they will. Yes. When? Now, Jim. Now.
Yes! Now! Buy! Sell! Stop! Buy! Purchase! Sell! Yes! No more monkey business! No! More! Monkey business! Yes! Enhance your portfolio! $500? I got $500! I'm sure! Yeah! Window of opportunity is opening now! Now's the time for all the names to seize the moment! The moment! Now it's time!
This place to go would be Florida. The Keys are lovely this time of year.
I was going to bring my grandfather, but there's no room for a seat.
You see this guy? He says, best place to go is Florida. I hear the Keys are wonderful this time of year. It's fucking weird, too, because me and my wife were trying to go to the Florida Keys. And our trip, I had to cancel our trip because the heater was broken. And like everything got all fucked up here. It's just weird. You see this guy's mask? He's got like the N95 mask around his neck. And this is the last clip I'm going to show, but this is like directly about the Mandoodle effect in movies. And they're watching in the movie theater the movie Vertigo, and it's strange because he starts to say, I don't remember this scene, and the scene they show, it's clearly from Vertigo, but in real life I don't remember the scene either, and I've seen that movie several times as well. I don't know if it's really, just some strange thing, or if he really used like a deleted scene or something from Vertigo. It's strange. But either way, it doesn't really matter. I'll show this and then I'll go into my own interpretation of the Mandoodle effect, briefly.
I think I've seen this movie before. When I was a kid, I saw it on TV.
Don't talk.
I did see it before.
Oh, jeez.
Have you been here before?
Yes.
When?
I don't
When were you born?
recognize this.
Long ago.
Where?
What's the matter?
Tell me. Madeline, tell me.
No.
Madeline, tell
It's just like what's happening with us.
No, I can't tell you.
Like the past.
You didn't know where you were. You guessed.
The movie never changes. It can't change, but every time you see it, it seems different because you were different. You see different things.
If you can't change anything because it's already happened, you may as well smell the flowers.
What flowers?
So he says, every time you see it, it's different. It's like what's happening to us. The movie can't change. The movie doesn't change. It can't change. But every time we see it, it's different because we're different. And basically, that is the way I see it. Like, my personal Mandoodle effect experiences, I'm not going to talk about the ones in, like, movies and stuff like that. But more, like, in real life. Like, for instance, I was driving with my wife a road that we don't drive together very often. We were driving, and I saw her really looking up at this house on a hill and a bend in the road. And I saw her looking at the house, and I was like, what? I just said what to her? She's like, nothing. I don't remember that house ever being there. Do you remember that house ever being there? And I was hoping she would say that. I gave her no prompting at all, but I had noticed like weeks before that there's this big house there that I've never seen before. For me, it's a Mandoodle effect. And yeah, it could be, you could say, it's just because it's winter, there's no leaves on the trees, you couldn't see it clearly before. And that's possible, but to me, it was just so striking. Like, we've been here for years. It's not like the first time I've gone around that bend. It's not a new house, it's an old house. And I noticed it and knew, like, for sure. I was like, that house was not there. I know it wasn't. And when I saw my wife just confused, like, looking up at this house, I knew immediately. And I said, what are you looking at? She said, I just don't remember that house ever being there. I can't believe that house has always been there. It was like complete confirmation. And just real life stuff. I've talked about them in the past with like objects I've owned being different, minor differences. There's another area up here where there's a huge, like, almost cubic boulder next to this abandoned cabin that I always look at when I drive by. One day I was driving by and there was 2 boulders instead of 1. Like 2 cubic boulders. Which to me, it's just no way I could misremember it or miss it. I almost crashed the car. It was so shocking. Another one is, in town, not a whole tree, just the trunk of a tree, but it's so enormous. Like the whole tree's trimmed down to just the trunk and cut short, but it's an enormous trunk that I noticed all of a sudden one day and had a similar experience with my wife, like independently confirming it. Another weird thing was like someone was putting like a poster, stapling it to the tree. You know how people staple, yard sale, different posters or something to stuff like that, telephone poles. It was like that. They're stapling something to this tree, but what I noticed is there weren't like a lot of other staples or nails in the tree. Like you'd think if something had been there for a long time, like a telephone pole in the city, you'll see like 10,000 old staples in it. You know, from all the old posters and everything that's been there. This wasn't like that. It was like one of the first times anything had ever been stapled to it. And this would be the last one I'll say personally, but like a practice space we used to have in Philadelphia, which I went to 1,000,000 times. And up on the corner of the street where I would turn onto this street was always a house, not a row house, like a single home. And at some point I went down and it was like a brown block small apartment building, which was not brand new, it was older, but it was not the right building. Like, I shouldn't say I know for sure, but to me, like, I remember the building that was there and it wasn't that building. So to me, things like that are what I lean on more than like media things, because it's just, it doesn't rely on it's not open to like manipulation through digital manipulation or through a screen. It's just my own personal experience and memories. Those are the most striking Mandoodle effects to me. But what he says in the movie theater, it's different every time we see it because we're different. I do believe that that is basically the truth. That's definitely one way to look at it. And that's not to say, you know, other people's far out explanations of the Mandoodle effect, like timelines shifting or time travel and interference in timelines back in time, and or AI supercomputers manipulating simulations, which through entanglement affect our reality as well, whether we're in that virtual environment or not. I believe they could all be true, because what I believe really is that we do not and cannot ever conceive of like reality as a whole. We are in a very limited, our perception is very small. It's like a very small piece of what's going on. That's the only way it can ever be as an individual. And what's really going on is all those things. Like, I think anything and everything is possible and can and does happen. And having to have it one way is basically a material view of reality, and I just don't have that view. I think no matter who you ask, whether they're a scientist or a mystic or a regular priest or whatever, I think you could get to a point where you could all agree that what we experience as material reality is not, that's not reality. That is a virtual reality, a mental construct of our minds. Like, we all know there's more light spectrums, there's sounds we can't hear. That goes for every sense, chemical sensitivity that we can't detect with our smelling or taste. It's too minute. And on into basically infinity with senses, other senses that we can't even conceive of because we don't have them. We can only conceive of the senses we've been given. Like, we can't conceive of what echolocation is like in a bat or a dolphin, or a million other senses that we just don't have. We can't imagine what it's like to have antenna, or to have the whiskers of a cat, or a snake, what it can sense with its tongue in the air. Like, that's just not, there's infinite ways to interpret reality. And when he says we're different, we're changing, I think I generally agree with that, because I think it's more like what's there is not infinite. There must be a reality, but basically it's a vast code, or you could look at it just energies, almost infinitely complex and vast energies, fields of energy interacting with each other. And our awareness of that is just our very small focal point. Or you could think of like the Matrix code, that green code streaming down the screen. and they can read it just in their own very fundamental way. And even if they're in the Matrix, they're only experiencing their tiny little part and perspective of the Matrix. But even the people outside don't have a full view. They just have their view. Like the character Cypher says, all I see is blonde, brunette, redhead, because that's his filter of reality. That's what he's interested in. That's what he's focused on. That's how he's decoding it. Or you could think of it like a letter, like a page of a book with like a 1,000 characters on it, right? And our individual view of reality is like one of these overlays, if you've seen a code, where there's like little squares cut out of a paper. Like maybe just like 8 letters or 10 letters, little boxes cut out. So when you overlay it over this 1,000 letter message, you see just the coded message that appears in your little cutout boxes. And to you, that is the message. That is reality. But the truth is, there's a million interpretations, right? And you are just viewing it through your particular cipher, like your overlay. So you could have a really negative view of this. Is very like simplistic, a very simplistic view. I'm just making it simple, but you could have one cipher that's how you view reality, that when you overlay it over the letter, you see that it says fuck you, F-U-C-K-U. Another person has a slightly different cipher, but when they overlay it, because they have different boxes cut out of their decoding cipher, instead of fuck you, it says lucky you. So they have a really positive view of reality. But the underlying fundamental reality is neither of these things or both. You know, neither are wrong, neither are right, but it's just way vaster than our capability to interpret, like infinitely more vast. And what we're really doing with reality is just viewing it through different ciphers. We're decoding it different ways, but that the underlying fundamental reality is not changing. It's us that's changing. It's our deciphering of reality that is changing. And I believe it can go way past just a negative fuck you or positive lucky you viewpoint, to the point where, yeah, you could go to completely different worlds, completely different timelines, different dimensions, etc., with a completely different cipher, a completely different way of decoding reality. It's just really a different way of looking at it. But you could go to a cipher that is so vastly different than the consensus cipher that you're literally in a different world. But it's not like you're traveling through space or literally going to a different dimension, even though you could look at it like that, but it's really all just this one world, this one reality. But the objective reality is so rich and vast, the code is so deep, and the human experience is such a small sliver of that you could slide your code, interpret it so many different ways as to experience whole completely different worlds, completely different realities. And that could even be what a lot of these people could, quote, like, for lack of a better term, discover a different world or a different dimension. That is part of these occult practices, secret society practices. Whether they do it through ritual or do this or do that, it's really just a way of looking at reality, a different way of decoding reality. And then they can actually show that cipher to other people. They can bring them into that reality. Like if I discover a new world, a new dimension, a new reality, I could come back, decode reality in the consensus way again, and I could gather people, a couple people in a group and say, look, if you do this and change your perception in this way and do this with your body and do this with your mind and go through these procedures to bring them into my way of decoding reality, all of a sudden, click, it unlocks. And they can now use my cipher that I discovered to travel with me to this completely new reality, this completely new world, or at least interpret reality in that way. But again, this is possible alone. You could just try all different combinations of perception and all different ways of looking at the world and all different ways of interpreting reality, this is what happens when people have psychotic episodes or they go crazy or they're schizophrenic or they're on drugs. They're decoding reality in a different way. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means they're insane. Insanity is real because insanity and solipsism are the same thing. Like, if you're decoding a reality all by yourself, you are insane. Literally, from the perspective of everyone else. You're not able to relate that reality to anyone else. Your cipher doesn't have enough in common with their cipher. You're decoding completely different realities. They're too different to coexist together, right? So, in order to not diverge into insanity solipsism, you do need some sort of group. But you can have scouts, like people who are very mentally strong, like him in that movie, 12 Monkeys. They say, we need people who are mentally strong who can hold up against this mental stress. You can have people that venture out and try all different ciphers, all different decodings of reality, and they can come back and say, hey, I found one that works well. I discovered a new world. I discovered a new reality, a new decoding, a new cipher that is very useful or pleasant or interesting. And they could come back to the group and teach that new cipher to the group. So you don't have to diverge into solipsistic insanity, but you can venture and explore safely as a group into new realities. And you could look at that in the big picture of this time we're in the objective reality, in the world, in the story we're in, where we're in a time where consensus is breaking down. Like Jeffrey, when he's in the mental institution, the key that insanity gives you, which you could look at as internally or externally. The world is going insane, either one. But it presents an opportunity where you're free from the old cipher, the old decoding, the old consensus decoding of reality. It presents a window in this chaos where you can actually escape and slip out of the mental institution. And you could look at it as physical, or you could look at it as just mental. But you have a chance to escape from this mental construct and go into a completely different interpretation of reality, which equals a completely different world, a completely different timeline, a completely different reality. And you may have to do that alone, but hopefully it's possible to do it as a group together. We can go on these explorations. So when things seem the worst and the most chaotic, that's actually the best time, or one of the only times where you have this opportunity to escape and to change your cipher, to change your decoding of reality, and actually discover new worlds and new timelines and new realities.
I think I've seen this movie before. When I was a kid, I saw it on TV.
Don't talk.
I did see it before.
Don't, please.
Have you been here before?
Yes.
When?
I don't
When were you born?
recognize this.
Long ago.
Where?
What's the matter?
Tell me. Madeline, tell me.
No.
Madeline, tell
It's
me.
just like what's happening with us.
No, I can't tell you.
Like the past.
You didn't know where you were. You deaf.
The movie never changes. It can't change, but
No, I can't tell
Every time you see it, it seems different because you're different. You see different things.
If you can't change anything because it's already happened, you may as well smell the flowers.